This is my 1980 Yamaha SRX. If you've watched some of my other videos, you might have seen this sled before. It's kind of peeking in the background. The reason I haven't really made any videos on this is because this was like my learning sled. It's the first engine that I really tore down and went through. It runs good, but it's not super fast yet. And I know that I can make it faster. I can confidently say that because of one thing: the clutching. Before we get into the clutching, we kind of need to go over what's been done to this sled in the past. It was stored, and some mice got into the airbox up here, and they just built a nest in this airbox. And unfortunately, there's no baffles in it at all. And they ended up using the carburetor and the PTO cylinder as their latrine. So basically, this entire cylinder was just caked in rat piss. The crank was froze. I had to get the crank rebuilt. Luckily, the cylinders themselves were savable. They were Nicosil lined, and they were like brand new, redone Nicosil on it too. So it's got new pistons in it, new crank, redid the seals, gasket, everything. Engine's been totally gone through. Because the mice were just making a home in the airbox, the stock butterfly carbs were, pretty well shot. So I opted to go for a set of 36 millimeter Mikuni PowerJet carbs. These ones themselves actually came off of a Kawasaki Invader, but it's the same size and type that would have been on the stock SRXs for 78 and 79. So I at least had a place to start with my tuning of it. Now, the stock jetting on those carbs wasn't exactly enough to run because our exhaust pipes, if you can see right around here, we've got some extra welds on it. Well, the pipes have been cut open and all of the baffles have been gutted out of it. So they're a lot more open than what a stock pipe normally would be. The cylinders on this sled have also been heavily ported. And because of that, I had to take these carbs apart probably 20 or 30 times, just playing with jets and getting something that would actually get it to run decent. And I ended up with a lot fatter jets in it. The previous owner did have a set of aftermarket pipes on it, and he said he had 44 millimeter flat side carbs on it. And at one point, he had this sled on radar at the ice drags up to like 103 miles an hour. I know one thing for sure is that my power limitation is these 36 millimeter Mikunis. Basically, you just can't get enough air through the 36s. However, I'm not really looking to race this sled. I just kind of want to ride it around and have a good time. So these will do the job for now and get the power that I want out of it. It does have a Comet 102C on it, which is a very tunable clutch, and there are stock calibrations for this sled and this clutch. Now, being that this sled isn't quite stock anymore, I think we're going to have to work and find our own clutching that works best. I guess the first thing to do when calibrating your clutches is mark your sheaves. So I've just got a Sharpie. I'm going to make a couple lines. By doing that, we'll be able to see how far the belt walks up the sheave and make sure that we're getting a full shift first of all. So back in the shop now, I took the belt off and you can see our lines here. There's about 3/8 of an inch down from the top. And it's not quite a full shift, but I would actually chalk that up to snow conditions more than anything else. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and pop that primary off and see what kind of weights and spring we're dealing with. Now that it's on the bench, we can take and pop her open. Ooh. There we go. Alright, one thing that I am kind of noticing right away is the cover bushing is kind of worn. There's a lot of play in the buttons, and our movable bushing isn't in the best shape either. I'm guessing this clutch has a lot of miles on it. I don't frankly feel like rebuilding it right now, so we're just going to ignore that. Looks like we have some sort of yellow spring. I'd have to take measurements to find out exactly what that is. And we're playing with C1 weights. This C1 weight, if you look at it, the profile, it's got this divot right here. And what that's doing to us is it's pushing our engagement speed up because it's not shifting right here. And so it's got to get up to a higher RPM before it actually hits an engagement spot and moves. These weights have to be pretty old because C1 doesn't exist anymore. Now they're known as N1s. The only reason I know that is because that's kind of what I matched it up to as the modern equivalent of it. Luckily, I have C weights with it, and I'm guessing they were running the sled at some point. So it is the same radius, so we should get the same shift pattern, but we're missing that flat spot right here, so we should have a much lower engagement. However, this weight is 2 grams less. I'm not sure how much that's going to affect it. It will give us a little bit higher RPM, which I think I'm looking for because stock SRXs ran up to like 9,300 RPM and we're only hitting 8,000 so far. The spring I was running with the C1s, we were getting about 4,500 RPM engagement. So between these two weights, I feel like the C would be the way better option here. So I'll take and pop these ones out and put my set of C's in and we'll run it and see what happens. Alright, replacing the cam arms on these 102s isn't too bad, especially because we've got the bolts instead of the pins and roll pin in the side. But basically you just take the bolt out, loosen it up, pop the old cam arm out with the washers, put the new one in with the washers, and shove the bolt back in. Except you got to do it 1, 2, 3 times. I think I'm also going to go with this purple spring over this yellow spring, and it should keep our engagement RPMs down. Alright, purple spring C weights all installed. Let's take her for a rip. See what we got. Here I'm checking engagement speed where it starts to grab the belt. As I grab full throttle, it runs up to 9,000 RPMs and maintains it. That's our maintenance RPM, and it'll stay there throughout the shift pattern. I really like what those C weights are doing. We got a good maintenance RPM of like 9,200, so I'm happy with that. You can also see we've worn away our marks a little more, and we're almost right at the top, so I think we're finally getting a full shift. But the one thing is our engagement RPM was like 3,500. I could smell the belt burning pretty bad, so I think we're going to shove this old spring back in. Hopefully we can push that engagement speed up just a little bit to like 4,000, 4,200, somewhere in there. Alright, here's the yellow spring and C weights. The engagement speed came right around 4,000 RPM. As we get going, we climb up to 9,000 RPM, and as we get further into the shift, it settles down to right around 8,600 RPM. We top out right around 90 miles an hour on the speedometer, which is about 77 miles an hour according to my GPS on my phone. Man, this thing is just a blast now. It's amazing how much of a difference just the clutching makes. And really all I did was, in the end, switch the cam arms. The engagement speed was still a little bit low. I wish I could get it a little higher, but I think I'm good with where it is right now. Just the clutching, we gained 17, 18 miles an hour out of it now. That's good enough for me. Where it is now, it's already pretty scary, and I'm not sure that it being a pretty much stock setup, I could get much more out of it. If you like old sled videos and you liked this video, consider subscribing to the channel. I do a lot of stuff mechanically with these old sleds, and I'd appreciate it a lot.